Hey folks, welcome to Lighthouse Urban Food Forest. Sounds a bit grand for what we do, but we're living here. We've been here for 4 years. We try to grow most of our own food and eat most of our own food. We stay away from processed food, from sugars, from well, as much of that as we can practically. But anyway, still try and have a nice life. And so 4 years ago we shifted into this property. We've spent those 4 years pretty hard slog getting systems established and getting the garden going. So I thought I'd take you on a bit of a tour of it without further ado. It's a little bit windy today. I'm trying to cover the mic. I'm hoping that makes it clear enough for you. But anyway, I thought we'd start off here because this is outside my back door and the window from the kitchen points out here. So this is kind of how I start my day, making coffee and looking at what's going on in the property. So I'm going to just kind of walk us around relatively quickly, hopefully. This is obviously a pond. I really hope to get some more wildlife in there. There's a bit of goldfish, and sure, they're breeding profusely, but I really hope frogs come and adopt this space at some point. So we'll see how that goes. At the back here we've got a hazelnut that we transplanted once not long after we got here, and they've kind of really suffered because we chopped a hell of a lot of big roots to get them out of the ground because they were that size, which is probably 8 foot tall. We've tried to really remediate the ground around it. There's Egyptian walking onions over there obviously, and you can see comfrey. You're going to see a lot of comfrey on this tour. And then you can see these are Maori purple potatoes, so they're just building up and bulking up under piles and piles of mulch to try and keep this tree dry. So anyway, a wee bit further around, this is a herb bed we constructed. We had one here with concrete blocks and it was falling to bits, so we went and got a whole lot of macrocarpa and built this. And this is herbs, so obviously rosemary and garlic chives and lettuces. I've just put carrot seed in the bare spots in here because we're irrigating this, so it gets a bit of a watering every night. And that's obviously going to be great for lettuces, for carrots, for radishes, those sorts of things. Round the bed there's a few different herbs. We're trying to grow caraway and black cumin for our own seeds for cooking. We've got parsley there and chives and sage. Obviously the sage has gone mental. We've got some dill, again saving seeds from that, but also we love it in pickles and things. It's great to have in a cucumber salad. And down the end we've got coriander, which hasn't done particularly well, but has been nailed by slugs, so I've got to come patrolling here tonight. And then underneath it there's some purslane dotted around, winter sweet is it called, and nasturtiums, which will just kind of trail over the surface under these plants, so it should keep the surface of the soil lovely and moist. I'm going to come back to the greenhouse shortly, but right on the edge of it we've got a big thing of lemongrass growing here and a bin of carrots, and that bins of carrots just work bloody brilliantly because our ground is so stony and hard here, even after years of piling stuff onto it, that carrots just don't grow in the ground. It's so dry here as well, so easy to grow in a bucket and really get it going. Not really sure, you don't really need to know much about this. It's basically an area we've had courgettes growing previously. Now we've decided to put herbs in there and just fill this area with herbs. As you can see there are rosemaries that we grew from cuttings that we've got growing around the edge of that garden to around the edge of the pond, so it should be quite a cool wee environment in a while. It should be really good herbs and really good teas and things growing in there. As I said, I'll come back to the greenhouse. We've got a massive thing of black currants here that produced heaps last year. Well, this year the bushes are so much bigger, so it should be interesting. You might have seen in a different video I did, there's a whole lot of funny little bugs on here. They all seem to have disappeared for the moment. Anyway, look at there's one here. See it under there. Really funny looking thing. So anyway, have a look at my other video. There were heaps of them. They were all over it. This is kind of our main vegetable area, we really want to do annuals in here, but we're changing it quite a bit at the moment. So it's got black plastic to try and kill the twitch grass. As you can see, we fight the twitch grass really terribly. We've planted right around the edge with comfreys. You can see these are just small ones, but they'll come up. Planted all the way around the edge and down the paths with comfrey, because that should suppress the grass really well, and we'll be able to chop and drop it and use it as mulch on the vegetable garden. It's got very, very deep roots that bring up minerals and things from the subsurface, so subsoil, so it's really important. We've had to put bales of hay down here because we've got that same bloody grass growing everywhere. I planted some comfreys, as you can see down there. Those are kind of half on their sides because of the hay bales, because we've only just put the hay bales there. But they don't seem to care, so I'm just going to let them grow. This is the mighty hop, and it's growing very, very strongly. If we look around the back of it, it's going all up over here. I've got to get in there this afternoon and tie up all those tendrils, otherwise they're going to go next door. Down the back here we've got some tomatoes just starting to get going, getting hammered by slugs though, so it's a bit of a pain. And our blackberry, which is probably my favourite berry on the property. See if I can find a really nice one. There probably won't be one because I've got a camera on. But they grow lovely and big and long and full. It's probably picked a little bit early, but I don't mind a wee bit of a tart taste. Obviously it's doing really, really well. There's a hell of a lot of fruit on this year, so anyway, just following my line around here, most of our edge of our property has got bay trees planted around it, because we need to block the prevailing wind is facing straight down this fence, and it's a very, very strong wind nor'wester here in Canterbury, and it's could be quite damaging, so I wanted to slow the wind down as it came down the fence. So down this end there's a stone pine. I'm not sure whether that's got a future here or not, but then right around the property are these bays, and they're slowly but surely shooting up. Right, this is important to our property. This is what we call fondly the stinky bin. I put comfrey, I put any dock roots, I put all sorts of anything that's growing really well, nettles or lamb's quarter or whatever. Anyway, I put it in there. I usually fill it with water by myself, but over the winter I decided to bore these holes in it, and well, it just fills itself with water. As you can see though, it lets in these little flies. Well, that kind of may look bad, but it's not. They're actually all beneficials in the garden, and sometimes I find in here, if I look in here, there are larvae in there, and I tell you what, the chickens really, really, really like that. So anyway, we take that and we dilute it in the watering can, and we spread that around under the trees. It seems to really stimulate the roots, if I'm right. Things that are struggling, if you put this on it, it does very, 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 very well from there. I'm just going to kind of cut across here. Just bear with. This is where the path is supposed to be. Oh yeah, this is worth having a look. The last few years we've had this spinach growing, and it goes to seed and then it drops seed everywhere, and hey, you can't get rid of spinach, so we've got spinach weeds, and you can see them popping up all over the place under here, in the paths, all under the mulch, and if you weed into an area here, there are little spinach seeds all through it. It's quite cool. So obviously tons and tons of chickweed, which is a lovely pesto as well. So anyway, this area is all essentially being left fallow. It's area we've had sprouting broccolis growing all down through here. We've had a whole lot of random brassicas that bred last year and were growing all through here. We've had onions. You can see the onions are being dropped down. There's more sprouting broccolis and things there. We love that. And then there's a big patch of celeriac, which kind of went too far. The bottoms are still relatively edible, but They've been really hammered by aphids, but now that the flowers are coming out, they've started attracting a whole lot of beneficials. I can't whether see if I can get some round. It might be really hard to see on the camera, but if I shake them a little bit, I get little insects coming out in little swarms, so it's quite good. There's a whole lot of little beneficial wasps and things going on there. This is our corn patch this year. We just kind of scattered it. It's all Aztec corn. It's for flour, not for eating, because we've been way more successful with that, and well, most of that came from one ear. That did very well, so it's doing okay. It's kind of underplanted a wee bit with buckwheat, so maybe I'll get some buckwheat, but maybe I'll just create a lovely ground cover that keeps coming back each year. And then down the front here we've got a hedge. I'm trying to block the wind as it comes across here into it's the strong wind coming through and into the vegetable garden, just to try and stop it getting so dried out. So along here I've put in blackcurrant nails. Whoops, gone sideways on you. Blackcurrant nails, so I've grown these, and they're dotted along here with comfreys protecting them, because I think they're probably a pretty good nurse plant for them. As you can see, they're doing pretty well, considering they were sticks I pushed in the ground. It's as simple as that. So I've made a real hedge of that down here, down to this wormwoods. Why we planted the corn in here is because we want to protect it from that really strong wind, and we've got things planted in behind all of this area that will just give it a little bit of protection to the corn. And as the wind comes around and through between these bushes, it will spread the pollen beautifully down into this whole area down through here. So I think that's really cool. Anyway, there's a whole lot more spinach. They just keep coming up from the other side of the path, and here's why. You can see why. These plants are going to seed, and you can see how much seed they're going to produce. Every little one of those nodules is going to end up being little clusters of seeds. So you start multiplying that up. Hey, if anybody knows me locally and they want some spinach, then let me know. I've really longed for lots and lots of asparagus. You can see some growing over here in the back. I've got 4 plants that have come to the size that we could actually eat them, and well, we loved them, but just not enough. Well, this is a really grassy spot. Unfortunately, we've got tons of this twitch grass down here, so what I've been trying to do is to change the soil life and see whether I can't select against the grass. So as you can see, I've got a massive load of comfrey that I've put around everything around as you can see, there's another asparagus here, and there's more in the back there. So I've put tons and tons and tons of comfrey leaves around those, and then I'm starting to put grass clippings all over it. We grow our own mulch, obviously. So starting to try and change that soil and select for this, because as you'll see at the end of the video, I've got a whole bunch of asparagus plants I want to get in the ground. I've kind of sidestepped strawbs, obviously doing really well there. I don't treat them mean, they're doing very well. A lovely fig, Mrs. Williams, that's growing tons. It's a decent sized tree. It's liking that position. And then around to here we've got some what's the bulb called? Anyway, we've got some more herbs, and we've got an apple tree. This is a cider apple. It's a little bit more bitter than tart than normal, but hey, I really like those. I like to eat apples like that, but also would really like to make our own cider. So last year I had a bit of a failed attempt to make some wild brewed cider. I wonder if these ones are, look at the bloom on that. It's covered in natural yeasts. So I really want to do a very happy cider tree made into cider. I'll do a different video on that, obviously. Underneath here is one of my hopes. I've got mushrooms growing in here, morels. Fingers crossed. I haven't been very successful with mushrooms and really would like to get a mushroom harvest, but they supposedly grow underneath apples, and I've created this little spot here where, as you can see, all the apple prunings have been laid down on the ground, so I'm trying to provide a food source for that fungus, and well, fingers crossed. Apparently morels are an incredible delicacy, so yeah, fingers crossed. We're doing more hugels. We loved how our hugel out the back has performed, so we've decided to do more, and we've built a bed here. It's kind of subsided a bit. It's a whole lot of brush and sticks and branches from tree clippings and things, and it's covered in sods turned upside down, and then some compost on the top, and it goes down to the end here, right across the front. And then we've got another great big pile of branches here. We're about to have some woofers come, so they'll help us spread compost all over that. And then we have this essentially keyhole area where we can walk down the middle here and eat and pick things from the sides. You can see these are collards. They've gone to seed, and that's just the most incredibly prolific seed. So I'm looking forward to a ton of collards around the property. It's been a real performer. I can't really stop for the detail because I'm sure you're getting bored. It's 16 minutes already. This is a nectarine tree. It's a nectarine gold mine. It's got a bit of leaf curl, but it seems to be doing well. Plum duff's early, as you can see, is laden with fruit all up these branches. Absolutely fabulous harvest this year, so I'm really looking forward to that. All underneath the understory of our plants you'll see potatoes. Most of these are this purple Maori potato. As you can see, it's doing really well here and coming up through this patch of dock, and I'm not sure why this patch of dock is here, but I'm letting it do its thing. As you can see, there are potatoes coming up all through here. There's mustard and things that I use as cover crops, and all in between it there are pumpkins. Where are we? Oh, there's some catmint. There's pumpkins, and there's where are we? There is a pumpkin somewhere in here. It might have got a bit drowned. Anyway, they're coming up all through here, and they'll spread out all across the surface in no time. Likewise, all through this area under here is, at the moment it looks like it's mustard on the surface, but there are pumpkins dotted all around here, the pink banana pumpkins that are really massive. This is a pear tree which has got two varieties grafted on it. It's underplanted with horseradish, which seems to love this spot. I've got horseradish like I use comfrey, so it's comfrey all around the roots around there to block the sun on and keep the soil moist around underneath it. As you can see, it's all fallen over, so it's just doing this beautiful mulch job. A wee bit of a shame because I've lost a few sprouting broccoli and beet seeds in there, but anyway. So this is all lovely. It's a hazel. Then we're around into the main potato area. As you can see, they've done very well. We don't do any earthing up. All we've been doing is to leave the potatoes in the ground that are really small ones. So we ate from this last winter. We just took the potatoes that we wanted when we wanted them, and then we left the smallest ones in the ground. And as you can see, they're doing really well. That's a big area. Well, I also chucked potatoes all around the place on the property, so we've got a ton of different potatoes coming up, so it's pretty good. It's just a wee patch of onions here. Here's some of these pumpkins. These ones are doing really well still. As you can see down here on the edge, and there's some around there as well. It's spaghetti squash doing really well, and pumpkins, you can see leaves sticking up through the middle there. Yeah, they're going to take over in no time, and they'll be great mulch for these potatoes, so hopefully we get tons of potatoes growing underneath the pumpkins. See if it works. We've got a bit of a brassica patch here. Probably didn't have the right strategy. We've got spinach at one side, as you can see, tons of spinach. Those are beetroot, bull's blood beetroot. We've way overplanted those, so we're eating tons of them. Then in this patch there's obviously comfrey. There's comfrey everywhere. There's kale, there's red Russian kale, there's curly kale, there's red cabbages, green cabbages, Savoy cabbages. There's a Savoy there. Collard greens, which I think this is, Brussels sprouts, sprouting broccoli. Yeah, tons of stuff. It's doing really, really, really well. This is a fairly low point in the property, and they clearly are appreciating the rain that's been happening for the last few days. They're doing very, very well. We've just put in some hay down the front, hay bales to try and kill. There was a big line of grass down there. It was starting to invade under the edge, so as you can see there's the odd bit of it down in the middle here, but it's fairly minimal. So they're just really to break the wind and try and block out the grass, create a margin around it. There's a wee ladies' mantle in there. I really like to spread that round. It's supposed to be the miracle tea for women. These are 2 beds we added last spring, so we mulched them really heavily. We had chickens on them, and we had black plastic on them for quite a while, just to try and rid us of that grass. It was a bit of a bad experience because it just comes back, because here it is growing on the edge. So you can see right round here though I've grown comfreys spaced really, really frequently around the garden, and that's really important because comfrey seems to be the one thing that really does not care about the grass and it seems to kill it wherever it's been growing really well. So I've planted comfreys, tons and tons and tons of them, and hopefully they help us against this grass, because we don't want to use plastic all the time. That's just not who we are and what we stand for. So anyway, and you can see I've planted comfreys around the bottoms of each of the trees in the last season as well. So these are all fairly small ones, but they're taking off. This is a cool wee apple that's supposed to be really, really high in some nutrient that's supposed to be protective for your body. So in here we've got another patch of productive stuff that we really like. We had some Goliath peas growing here. Down in here, you might have seen another video, I sprinkled a whole ton of leek seeds, and if I can zoom there, you can see there are leeks, but once you can see them, you can see that they're absolutely everywhere right across this area, so that's really cool. I basically thought I'd do that because these onions were doing so well. Look at them, they're lovely robust things. So and right beside it, the garlic. Unfortunately, you can see our garlic has just picked up some rust, but I'm going to use that stinky bin, the comfrey tea, that's got a whole lot of anaerobic bacterial action happening in it, and I'm going to water this entire patch, which is maybe 400 garlic cloves, with that, just to give them a last little boost. They've got maybe a month before harvest, so we're right at the start of December, so yeah, we'll probably do it around 1st of January or something like that, so not long to get through, so I'm not too worried about the rust. It's not going to damage them too much. There's some really lovely fat roots on some of these, so yeah, I'm not too worried. I'm fairly sure this is going to be a good harvest. So up through here we've got a fig tree, we've got a prune plum ahipara, and prune plum grows like a normal plum. It's obviously really laden down with fruit this year, really fabulous. It grows beautifully, it's got a beautiful bloom on it. Last year we dried some, we only maybe dried about 20 or 30 of them, and they were fabulous, really delicious in midwinter, real tang to them, they're really great. So this year I want to grow a whole lot more. Intrigued to see, as just showing you there, there's quite a bloom on those as well, so maybe there's a fermented product here I can think of as well. So behind that is probably our biggest tree, which is an almond, and I was always told that almonds wouldn't grow very well down here because they flower quite early. It's just gorgeous when it flowers, and sometimes the flowers get frosted. Well, we still get a few almonds in there. You can probably see they look like peaches. There's the occasional branch though that's just absolutely covered in fruit. So I don't know whether you can really see that against the bright black background, but that's just really laden. It's fantastic. So this area is some brassicas along the front and some courgettes. We've had fantastic courgettes the last couple of years, so we really want to continue that and eat tons and tons. You can see some of these bays are getting a bit bigger down here, so they're doing really well down this end, and they're really forming a very, very thick hedge here against the strong wind. So in this space you can sort of see how this works. In the background there you can probably just see there's an oak tree sticking up there that's going to grow up high and will give us lots of leaf mulch as well, which I'm looking forward to. Behind that is Gracilina littoralis, which is a native which grows in this area. It's evolved for these conditions, so that's my hedging, and it's double row zigzag, so it's maybe, yeah, it's getting on towards 3 meters thick, so it's pretty good. Behind that is a row of hazels. Again, we dug those out of the ground. They've suffered, but they're coming away really well. And behind that is stone pine, and we've got 3 stone pine in a row that are here as windbreak. But hopefully we get a few pine cones full of full of pine nuts. So I'll show you how that. I'll show you one in a minute, because there's one down on that tree. And behind that, we've then got a whole lot of these Jerusalem artichokes. Now they're really, really dense. You can see we're trying to get rid of some of them because they're a real pain. We actually need to be able to get around sometimes around the garden. But they just grow like crazy. Most amazing biomass. So actually I'm using them and using a knife and chopping and dropping them and using them as mulch. They seem to just keep coming back. In fact, we tried to have a bit of a compost bin here, and well, you can see they're just coming up, so they're all full of it, so it's a bit of a pain. Probably the only ordinary tree apart from our windbreak, but it is again to be that windbreak in this part of the property before the fruit trees. It's an alder, and it's doing pretty well. It's a nitrogen fixer, so anything water that comes down here will all capture that nitrogen into the trees and make them do really well. So anyway, I'm just going to get around here a wee bit further so I can turn back around. You can see I've done edging and comfrey right through here and filled all the gaps in underneath the hedge here with comfrey, but you can also see the hazels have decided they're going to fill in underneath here as well. So there's a few of these that are really suckered heaps. We've chopped them back numerous times, but there's just a ton of little hazels, so they'll make a really dense understory underneath this, so I'm kind of going to leave them. Plus if they sucker and they grow really tall, I think there's one here, they make fantastic garden stakes. Look how beautiful and straight that is. It makes a very nice thing once it's dried out and hard, so once it's grown for a bit. We've got a beehive here. Luckily our lovely friends at Be Awesome have given us a hive. They usually put them into community gardens and schools, so they're a social enterprise. Cool thing to support, and we just love having bees here. It's fabulous. So they're it's a little bit cold this afternoon, so I don't think they're quite as active as they have been during the day. It's been like Heathrow. Again, you can see horseradish tucked under trees where it grows beautifully, and so does the comfrey, obviously. Just swing back around. What is going to be the largest tree on the property eventually is this walnut tree, and yeah, we're starting to get some walnuts forming in here. Got hammered in the wind a few weeks ago, but it seems to be okay. There's where my dear old pussycat is buried. So anyway, that's the other side, and you can probably see the leeks doing really, really well all through here. You can see them in the distance here. That's pretty cool. I'm really, really pleased with how that's worked. So I'm going to save leek seed and onion seed and sprinkle the hell out of it down here. So those onions are beautifully in flower. They actually look like they've already got seed pods on them, so fantastic. Wow, this is going to end up being onions around this little bank. Coincidentally, actually, while I'm here, you can see there's a bit of a rise up through here, Well, that wasn't here when we got here. This was absolutely flat. We've just put so much mulch and so much organic material on here, including wood chip and straw and hay and all sorts, that actually we've ended up with some swales and some hills, which is very, very cool. So down the front here we've got a beautiful apricot tree which has got like 20 fruit on it. It's better than last year, which was like 2, and the birds got them. So hopefully it does well this year. Next year maybe even better. We've got another almond growing down the front here that's grown from a seed from the other one falling on the ground, so I quite like that, and it's growing crazy. We've ended up putting about 4 of them in. This is just sort of fallow. It's got comfreys around the outside, it's got pumpkins growing in the middle. They're going to go crazy. You can see they are already underneath here. They're loving the moisture and the protection from the wind. And then it's got mustard seed growing everywhere. So it's happy, it's very happy, and that mustard seed's apparently got lovely long deep fibrous roots and will get down into the soil and help remediate this area, because this kind of was open lawn until a little while ago. So there's a couple of cherries in there, Stella compact cherries, not doing particularly well because we've had that nasty pear and cherry slug this year. I've cracked it, I think, by having the chickens under it for quite a long period of time, and they've disturbed the life cycle, and well, so far, touch wood, none of these. There's a wee one there. Touch wood, did I say? And that is the sawfly. That is its parent, so you can go. Really want them to do well. I didn't think this was going to live. This is a valerian, and it's just got this beautiful flower. Well, that's great for beneficial insects, but as the clump grows and as it gets taller here, it'll be quite a large clump, and I've seen them growing in other places, other gardens, and they get really big. So I'm quite keen for that, because then I can use the root to help me sleep, because I do suffer a bit. And around the far side of this, we've got a couple of blueberries. These are different varieties. You can see they're quite different sizes and styles of fruit. We've got a couple of others dotted around as well, but they're not doing anywhere near as well as these. I'm assuming the grass again is keeping them nice and mulched. I've certainly been piling comfrey around them, and they've had, I come through and cut all of this back at some point and layer it as mulch right around them and around this side, so that we retain all of the water on the property. So when it rains heavily, this area here fills with water, and then it sits and it soaks into the garden down that way, so it's really cool. From this side you can sort of see this hedging and why it's so important to us. The oak tree at the front, and then this double row of gracillinia trees, then the hazel behind that. So really, really dense. As you can see, that's probably in total maybe 4 or 5 meters thick. So really great way to stop the wind coming in there. You can see we've quite deliberately created a curve in the driveway as well. That just again slows. And on the other side we've done another curve which is the same stuff, and as you can see that's really hedged up. So there's a couple of native lemon woods which I'll probably need to start topping soon so they don't affect the neighbours, but really cool thick hedge. But double hedge means the wind comes down round the corner here and slows down, and then drops all of the leaves and leaf litter and stuff all down the side of the driveway here, so it's making this soil a whole lot better, which is really cool. New Zealand yams, or ochre. Don't know whether you've ever seen them before. If you're a Kiwi you probably have. They've done really, really well down here, and they're just kind of growing in underneath. We've had a lot of rain this year, so they're doing really well, and they're just filling up the space. And again, we just harvest the ones that we want to eat, the decent sized ones. We leave all the small ones in the ground, and somebody said that would just mean we'd always get small ones, but they essentially grow as a clone, so I didn't think that would be right, and I've proven it. So these are just growing really, really well. You might not get a whole heap of big ones from a single plant, but between them you certainly do. And when you get to them being this size, they always have big ones underneath them, so worth noting, because they disappear as soon as they're frosted. That's another one of these almonds, so we've kind of we're going to espalier them along these wires on this fence. And there's a plum, and there's some raspberries. We've got tons of raspberries here, you wait until you see those. All along the front here, again, we've got a series of bay trees because they're good for blocking the wind down there. This is kind of, I suppose, the front of our property, so it's important for us to look tidy enough, otherwise the mother gets upset. However, we've got raspberries that have grown there really well, and we gave a whole lot of raspberry canes to the next door neighbours. They planted them just on the other side of this fence, and then they've come back for us, so that's really cool. You might see the occasional bit of colour in here. They're just coming ripe, so I'm going to... No, you're lucky, I'm not going to eat a raspberry right in front of you. Quite ripe enough for me. Down the side here we've got a few of these magnolias. We bought them from a local nursery. They're really overgrown. This is probably the one that suffered most because of its position. It's quite exposed to wind and sun. But these were $5 each at nearly that height. And their roots were all growing into the root mats in the nursery, so he just hacked them off with a knife. But I managed to get them to live. As you can see, if we get right up to the other end here, Aquilegias, love Aquilegias. My darling wife said she didn't like them here. It had other thoughts. As you can see, there's a hell of a lot of Aquilegia plants coming out through there, and they're dotted all around the property now. So right up in the corner here is this another magnolia, the same as the other one, but you can see how much healthier it is. It's going to be a beautiful, beautiful tree. The flowers just smell divine on there. Right, around the other side of the house. What are we at? 36 minutes, you poor people. The back of our property is got a hedge to block the worst of the southerly wind. That's the cold, strong, cold wind. And this is tree lucerne, tagasast. It's done very, very well. It's a great chop and drop crop for us too. Whenever we get whiffers, we get them to climb up on the fence and clean it. They all seem to be climbers, so it's been fantastic to have people coming and standing on the fence and just hacking this back. And it can really take a vicious hacking, and it just keeps coming back, so it's cool. We've had a hell of a lot of brush given to us by my father-in-law, so we're going to make hugels out of it. It's just really handy to get trailer loads of stuff that all just breaks down. Obviously we get hay locally as well. People have spoiled hay that's ended up too rotten or whatever for livestock to eat. Well, it's bloody amazing in the garden, especially once you've left it for a while to let seeds germinate. So they'll all germinate, and then in the summertime they'll probably die as well. It's quite a pile. So that's going to be really cool. We've got woofers coming next week. This is round our clothesline, but it's kind of an example of why I really like these Maori potatoes, the purple potatoes. So you can see here's some growing here down on this grass. Well, I'm just going to let those spread through this area, and it's kind of a circular area for a reason, because it's got a clothesline up above it. But it's going to end up with potatoes growing all around there, so I've really favoured a couple down here. I've actually mulched around them. I don't normally bother. As you can see, there's a couple coming up that were just basically in grass, and they're quite happy. I'll show you the next lot as the next come around, because they're like chest height on me. This is kind of my native area, so with a couple of exceptions, I really want this to attract birds, to attract native insects, to give a habitat in the garden for birds nesting. So all of these trees are very, very dense. Small birds love them for nesting in. These bushes, well, too many cats visiting the neighbourhood too, for them to be nests, but they're lovely and dense and great habitat, so hopefully skinks and things coming in. And then there's a whole lot of nitrogen fixing plants. So this is kakabeak. It has beautiful big long red flowers on it, and then produces pods. So again, it's one of those characteristics of antelope leaves, characteristics of nitrogen fixing trees. And beside it, This was an experiment. This is broad beans super agua dulce, and they were growing, I can show you in here, they were growing through a whole lot of branches and sticks. We put them down on the ground to try and deter the cats from going and using this as a toilet and digging it up. As you can see, they're doing really, really well, and they're really densely planted, and we've got a hell of a lot of beans coming in here. It's quite a nice wee patch, so that should give us lots of lovely hummus and things. So I'm kind of going around this garden. So this is our first hugel that we made. We did one row of branches and wood and sticks and things down this side, and we did one down that side. But as we've gone, we've ended up filling in the middle with a whole lot of prunings as well. It's doing really well. At the moment, right down through the middle here, this is irrigated, as you can see, there's a tube here. Right down through the middle here, we've got carrots and parsnip seeds just sprinkled on the surface, just to see how well they'll do, because we had parsnips that went beautifully in the side of this hugel last year. You can obviously see we've got tons more spinach and rainbow beets. I love all the colours in those, the yellows and the reds, and obviously tons and tons of greens, and they're just so good for you to have all that range of colour. There's an enormous bank here of rocket arugula, which is doing really well, so I'm loving that. So all around the edge here, just to protect this from the wind, we've got a whole lot of hay we got from a local farmer again, and that's just creates this wind block here because the strong wind comes through here again, and so we really want to protect that. We've got nasturtiums because I love nasturtium in salad. The flowers, the leaves, the seeds are amazing pickled. They call them poor man's capers, so you can see they'll grow all around here. They'll spread all over these hay bales. They'll spill out down the edges and stuff. Down here I've got some French sorrel, which I'm really pleased to say I got from the Guytons food forest down in Riverton. We were privileged enough to go and visit ourselves on a road trip down there and go and meet them ourselves. I was a bit starstruck, to be honest. It was a bit embarrassing for me because they're essentially why we did our property. That's essentially the inspiration for our property. Like the top of the French sorrel here is covered in these totally different teeny little flowers, which again is just fabulous for insect attractors. Likewise, there's arugula growing here. You'll see that lots of things we leave to go to seed because then we can sprinkle it. This is chamomile. I think these ones are a wee bit worse for wear, but it'll be flushed, and you can see all the tips. It'll be flushed in flowers again in no time. So beautiful tea, so much different, fresh, not that straw sort of flavour to it. Rainbow beets, again, I say that I love them. Well, they're all going to seed again, so I'm just going to naturalise them here, and this whole area will be covered in rainbow beets right beside the house. Really easy for greens. Around here, again, there's a few videos about this as well. This is the start of my grey water system. You can see, you won't recognise it from previous videos. You can see there's a basin goes right way around here. That's filled with about 2 foot of gravel, and then a whole lot of big stones placed on top. Our showers and hand basins come to here, and there's a purification system, a grey water channel that runs down through the garden, down through the natives down here, round and back around to our pond around the far side there. And it's beautiful. It's purifying the water beautifully. There's fish living in the pond very happily and breeding. It spills over fairly frequently. There's a native in here. I'm not quite sure what it's called, but it was growing in the Marlborough Sounds at a place we stayed, and bellbirds were feeding on it. I don't know whether you've ever heard a New Zealand bellbird, but the most beautiful noise. So I would dearly love to bring one into the garden. So, gosh, how long is this? 45 minutes. So here's the, we're coming to the end, sorry. Here's these potatoes that I'm talking about. Now that's up in the back there, that's my chest height. That's my arm held out straight. And you can see they're just growing all up through the back in here. And there's absolutely heaps of them. Fantastic. Can't wait to see how well they grow and whether we get tons of fruit. because they're purple, they don't go green when they're in the light, so they seem to just sit around in piles on the surface underneath all the mulch. You just end up with these, once you dig down a wee bit, you find these piles of potatoes, so it's really easy to forage some and then leave some in there for next year. So I really spread them around, so they're on the ground here, they're in amongst those. You can see them back in through the back over there. Actually, it might be an avocado tree growing over there. I'll have to go and check that. And there are tons of them. So again, more kakabeak. This is a type of kowhai tree. Again, you can see these tiny leaves. It's another nitrogen fixer. That one's another nitrogen fixer. Another one over there. You can see again tons of potatoes all in underneath and through here. Random patch. We had the chickens on here, so we've got a random patch of Jerusalem artichoke doing very, very well here. Well, I figure there are a big wind block here. Again, that wind comes down through here. So you've probably seen, and I haven't talked about, these beautiful, beautiful flowers of these manuka. Leptospermum scopareum. Many years ago I did a master's degree in plant biotechnology, and it was about manuka for a couple of really key reasons, and I must do a separate video about this. Manuka had long been known to be a medicinal plant by Maori, and they used it to they used the leaves to cure infections. It's normally got a white flower, by the way, so this is a cultivar that has red, and it's, well, this is just faded, but it's striking, really striking. So anyway, so I did my degree studying the essential oils that are produced, because I can smell them on my hands from the tree. The essential oils that are produced in the tree that are incredible for killing bacteria and fungi. That are amazing. You've probably heard of Manuka honey. Well, Manuka oil is going to be a really big thing. So I really want that, but actually they provide amazing firewood as well. They grow in this area, they grow fast, they grow straight. If you pollard them, they grow lovely straight branches, and I think if I start cutting branches when they're about that size, I think it'll just make perfect firewood. I'll just have to slice it up, it'll be great. Round two, you can see there's the channel coming through here, and it goes back around here and out again, so it's winding. It's very, very long. It's nearly 20 meters long, I think, of path. Water comes out the other end. You could just about drink it. It's fantastic. So there's a patch here. I've been trying to get a citrus growing, and Maya lemon, and it's just failed. It's been horrific. It's still got some green on its stem, but I'm just not hoping at all. Down beside it I've got garlic chives. They throw up these amazing flowers in the right season, so we end up with bees going absolutely crazy around here, and I figured that would be really good with that Maya lemon there, because it would fill this area, and it's sort of under the eaves slightly and under the shelter of wisteria as well. Just might give it some frost protection. Under that there's been a whole lot of sprouting broccoli, as you can see, again leaving to go to seed, because jeepers, I mean, that's the most amazing amount of seed. Each of those has got heaps of seeds in it, and there's a ton in here. Around the other side of this tree you can probably see Egyptian walking onions there. I think I mentioned that at the start. We had really bad trouble with them, and where we had them they were getting overgrown with grass, so we ended up pulling them around here and then putting them in a pot and keeping them really happy in the greenhouse for a while, and then planting them. They look like they've all been blown over, but they're definitely creating bulbs. So you see they're a top set onion, and they fall over into here, and they'll drop the onion top down here, so therefore they'll walk and they'll find the right place that they want to grow on that island. They're clearly enjoying it though, because it's, look how strong those plants are. So really cool. So anyway, one of the highlights for this property is this raspberry. I got it many years ago from an old guy, bought it online, bought a single cane, and I've made it now into 5 rows. I've given away hundreds of them. They're just the most prolific and beautiful raspberry. As you can see, new growth coming on here. is strong. These things grow 8 foot tall. Then we tie them down, tie the tops of them down when they've got no leaves on them, and they're incredibly prolific fruiting. As you can see, there are tons and tons and tons of them, and I'm really hoping there's one in here that I can squeak in through the back there and eat a raspberry fresh. You don't get much fresher than that. Well, there's a nice one there. Long arms, very handy in here, because I can see one under here too. Anyway, I'm not here to eat a whole lot of raspberries right in front of you. That would be mean. I'll just back out of here. As you can see, they very conveniently grow suckers down the front here to try and get through this into this path. And well, each one of those is a friend for somebody. There are lots and lots and lots of them. Back round near the start, the greenhouse. You can see we built it ourselves. It's got kind of some second-hand windows, but we discovered a lot of the second-hand windows we had collected to make the rest of it had lead paint. We couldn't figure out how to get rid of the lead paint in a sustainable way, so we decided to just get rid of, and we've used plexiglass acrylic. It's really good for us anyway, because it's such strong wind out here. It's really important. So I'm going to just have a quick walk through that and through the greenhouse in a second, but I just wanted to point out down the side here, I talked right near the start about the asparagus that I grow from seed. You can see them down here. They're doing very, very nicely there. Easy close access to the greenhouse and easy for us to water. Oh, there's some random onions growing in there. There seem to be random onions growing in lots of places. And right down the fence down here are tomatoes, and I'm just going to call your attention to this one. You can see them all the way down here, but this one has been grown as a rooted lateral, a really big lateral, and I've I put it in water, waited for the roots to set. Look at different videos for information about that, because I've done tons of those because I'm so impressed by how well it works. And you can see there's bloody twitch grass everywhere down here, so I need to slowly eradicate this. This is why we hate twitch. It has these roots that go out along the under the surface that are very hard to pull out, that spread all over the place. And if you leave one of those, then it comes back and it spreads. Anyway, this tomato was grown in a glass of water. It had decent roots on it, and all I did was poke a hole in the ground and shove it in the ground. So compare that to this one, which has been planted up into a little pot in the greenhouse and tended to for a few weeks and then planted out. And you'll see that from now on I'm not going to be doing the second step to keep them all lovely. I'm just going to jam them in the ground. They seem to do really, really well. That one's called Gardener's Delight, and I've labelled it as Gardener's Delight Direct because I've planted it direct, just to keep an eye on what that effect is. So anyway, we just finished today making this new gate. Again, see a different video about that because I did this. Because it fits in here perfectly, and it lets insects come and go, which is really important to us. We need to be letting our beneficial insects come into the greenhouse and deal with aphids and whitefly and all that sort of stuff. So really important to keep it open. But we've got to keep cats out of here because, hey, that looks like a great litter tray, doesn't it? Right, so pull that out of the way really quickly, because I did do a different video on that just today. So basil bin with corianders growing around the outside. There's cucumbers growing up the side there. There's tangella tomato, 4 planted in a pot. I've been taking cuttings off these, as you can see, some fairly decent sized cuttings, so and they don't care. There's chilies down the front, Thai chili there, you can see we're getting our first few. There's a Tabasco in behind there. I've just planted a whole lot more Tabasco. There's a chili Asian Fire. I think Chili AF is just a really cool name. As you can see, that's covered in flowers, and it's really, just in the last little while, really taking off. Jalapeno. I think there's a little baby jalapeno forming around the corner here. Cucumbers. These ones were grown inside over the winter. As you can see, there are a ton of cucumbers on their way. You can see these all through here. And behind that, next row back, is some eggplants. You can see basil growing as an understory because that's just going to fill all the space underneath this. There's marjoram, there's more tomatoes at the back, San Manzano saucing tomato, and Tangella, the orange one. There's peppers growing in the back here, Marconi sweet long peppers. You can see we're getting a couple of nice ones there. They've been a bit hammered by the grass that was growing outside. As you can see, it comes through underneath. So I'm really trying to keep them happy. I've just given them the stinky bin yesterday, so this has all just gone really, really lovely and green, and I think these have finally settled in. This is pepper Mamma Mia Rossa, which is the standard big red peppers that we see, and that's Dolce, which is another long one like the Marconi. As you can see, a bit of coriander growing underneath there, that's doing really nicely. Then there's another cucumber here. We're just about eating some of these, so got one inside for dinner, so you can see tons and tons of flowers. Down the back there, there's a gherkin. There are a few more gherkins planted around the place as well. This is a tomato. There are 6 tomatoes that are planted in one pot. They got really long and leggy because I grew them too long inside, so I trimmed all of the lower foliage off them and laid them out from the central pot right out to there, then pegged them and brought them up. So again, there's another video about this, but you can see they've gone crazy, and they'll get to roof height in no time at all. So hence this is like a marionette. There's a whole lot of strings heading up here. I'm going to tell you about the seeds. It's 56 minutes. If I got a minute and a half, I think I could cope with that. You can see there's more gherkins coming up here. We grow seeds in these trays, and we've got this system that we use to be able to plant these out really quickly and effectively. And it works brilliantly, so we plant in bulk. Usually we have 4 or 5 trays going in here. As you can see, a lot of these are empty. They're things that have already been planted out. Still some things coming along though late, like miner's lettuce. I really like this as a nice little lettuce addition. Some more irregular. You can never have too much arugula. Actually, we can. There's still a few straggling pumpkins and spaghetti squash and things in here. I've just planted some cayenne and some goji. So I really want to get goji growing here. Tabasco, I've filled all of the rest of the holes in here with Tabasco. So I really want Tabascos. I've only got one of those chili plants, so I want more of them. A chocha I've never had before, but spiky gherkin-like thing. It should be really nice. So as you can see, there's the last of the sort of courgettes getting planted up, ready to go outside. There's tomatoes forming over the back here, as you can see. Those are green gold, so they should be really nice orangey green, beautiful things. And avocados. These are 3 avocados. I'll post about that some other time. We're going to go in the ground. Around the back is more cucumbers and gherkins. So that'll be they'll grow up the back of the greenhouse, and they'll fill the back of the greenhouse with foliage. So they'll always get sun, and they'll always kind of be in the background as well. Anyway, underneath is a whole lot of turmeric. Turmeric bulbs all through there, and actually all through this area down the side of this in front of the window. So actually when they start growing, they're going to come up through the foliage of the tomatoes. I'll be pruning back all the foliage if I can, and let them come up through here, and they'll come up and they'll create an understory underneath the tomatoes. So that is it. It's taken me an hour, just under an hour. If you want to know anything, then we'd love to hear from you. Comment below. If you want to hear more about us, we're on Instagram as Lighthouse Urban Food Forest. We're on Facebook as Lighthouse Urban Food Forest. And we're obviously on YouTube. So love to hear from you. If you want to know anything more about what we're doing, how we're working it, how we're being self-sufficient, then let me know. Hit follow on the page here, and hit the bell so you can get a notification when we've got the next updates. Cheers. Have a good day.